They say some wounds are invisible, that not all scars live on skin, but I remember exactly where mine started, right there in the corner of our dingy kitchen, underneath the hum of the broken refrigerator, where the wallpaper peeled like it was trying to escape. I was 8 when my mother looked up from her cigarette and said the words that would echo through my bones for years. You were the condom that broke. No anger in her voice, just boredom, like she was explaining why the milk had gone sour. I had spilled a cup of juice on the counter. That was my crime, a bright red pool of cherry Kool-Aid bleeding into the tile grout. I didn't cry. Not because I was brave, but because I knew better. Tears made things worse. She always said they were manipulative, that I was manipulative, just like him. I didn't know who him was for a long time. My father was never around, not even in memory. Just one crumpled photo stuffed in the back of a drawer I wasn't supposed to open. A man with tired eyes and a crooked smile. My mother never said his name. She only ever said he left, like he'd just gone out for cigarettes and got lost on the way home. She'd never hit me. No black eyes or broken bones. Just words, sharp, surgical words that carved a hole right where a little girl's self-worth should have been. My life was fine until you came along, she'd say. You ruined everything. You were a mistake, a burden, a punishment. But not to her. Her was my grandmother, June Adeline Monroe. The only woman I've ever known who could shut my mother down with just a glance. She lived in the house on Sycamore Hill. You couldn't miss it. A white Victorian with blue shutters and a crooked mailbox that leaned like it was tired of waiting for good news. The place smelled like lavender and old books and fresh-baked cornbread. The kind of house that made you believe home was something you could actually touch. Every summer, June would rescue me like clockwork. She'd pull up in her rusted Buick, all sunshine and lipstick and gospel music blaring from the speakers. And for 3 warm months, I could breathe. I could be. She'd sit me on the back porch and tell me stories. Not fairy tales. Real ones. Hard ones. About how she worked 3 jobs in the 60s just to keep a roof over her daughter's head. About how being a woman meant learning how to bleed and smile at the same time. You were born in a thunderstorm, baby girl, she once told me, brushing my hair while lightning danced across the fields. You screamed so loud the nurse dropped her clipboard. You had a voice from day one. Don't ever let anyone take it from you. She made me feel seen. She made me feel wanted. The contrast between the 2 homes, the one I suffered in and the one I survived in, was like night and day. With my mother, I walked on eggshells. With June, I danced barefoot in the kitchen. But my mom hated that house. She'd call it that damn coffin, said it smelled like rot and regret. She never visited, not even once. Not for birthdays, not for barbecues, not even when June was sick. What she did care about, though, was what the house sat on. Nearly 2 acres of untouched land on the edge of a town developers were starting. To circle like vultures, the bones of the house didn't matter to her. The soul of it? Non-existent. To her, it was just equity. Something she thought she'd inherit and flip and finally use to fund the life she believed she deserved. What she didn't know, what she never imagined, was that Grandma June had already changed her will. I found out the summer I turned 22. Was helping her organize old paperwork. Insurance documents, birth certificates, handwritten recipes. That's when I saw the yellow envelope. Unsealed. My name written on the front in her swooping cursive. Inside was a letter. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. Don't be afraid, baby girl. You were always meant to come back to this house, to make it yours. Your mama won't like it, but this isn't about her. It never was. She had left me everything, the house, the land, the furniture. Even the quilt she made by hand the year I was born, with each square stitched from fabric of her old Sunday dresses. I sat on that creaky front porch with the letter in my hands and tears on my face, not because I was sad, because for the first time in my life, I felt chosen. My name is Elena Monroe, and my mother spent her whole life calling me a mistake, but what she didn't know was this. Some mistakes come back not to haunt you, but to inherit everything you thought was yours. Grief comes in waves, but anger? That one stays low and steady, like a hum in your bones. And that's exactly what I felt the day we buried Grandma June. Grief on the surface, sure, but underneath, something deeper, something darker. My mother showed up late to the funeral, of course. She wore black like it was a costume, tight dress, high heels that sank into the cemetery grass, makeup too perfect for mourning, no tear tracks, no red eyes, just a glossy smirk when she leaned into me and whispered, "She could have sold that house years ago. Left us both something real." I didn't respond. Not then. What do you say to a woman who mourns real estate more than blood? But inside, my stomach turned. The church was half full. Grandma had outlived most of her friends, and the rest probably couldn't make it up the Sycamore Hill Drive anymore. But her spirit filled every pew. You could feel her in the hymns, in the smell of lemon balm on the altar, in the weight of the silence after the final amen. Afterward, we gathered at the house. Her house. My house now, though it didn't feel like it yet. People brought pies, condolences, folded napkins. I stood on the porch and tried to believe she was still sitting in that rocking chair, humming gospel under her breath, shooing away flies and worry in equal measure. And that's when the lawyer arrived. His name was Everett, wore glasses too, small for his face, and carried a satchel that looked like it had seen war. He pulled me aside into the parlor and opened a leather folder like it held a grenade. "I'm sorry for your loss, Ms. Monroe," he said, voice gentle. "But your grandmother was very clear in her instructions. She wanted this read today, to you and your mother." I swear the air shifted when he said that. My mother must have heard her name because she appeared like a curse, arms crossed and eyebrows raised. "This better not be another one of June's guilt trips," she muttered, plopping down on the armchair like it owed her something. Everett cleared his throat and began. "To my daughter, Evelyn." My mother perked up. "Who always chased what she didn't need, I leave forgiveness. I hope one day she finds it in herself to give it back." A sharp silence. "And to my granddaughter, Elena," my breath caught, "who never asked for anything but gave more than I deserved. I leave the house on Sycamore Hill and all the land that comes with it. The deeds are enclosed. It's hers now, every square inch." For a moment, the room was a vacuum. No sound, no breath. Just my mother's jaw tightening until I thought it might snap. Then, "Excuse me?" Everett calmly folded the will and tucked it back into the folder. "It's all legal, notarized, final." She turned on me like a switchblade. "You manipulated her." "No, she was sick. You preyed on her emotions, on her age. This isn't fair. That house was supposed to be mine." "You never even visited her," I said softly. "Not once in the last year. You only cared about what you thought she owed you." "I deserve that house," she spat. "After everything I went through, after raising you, cleaning up after your messes?" I laughed. It came out bitter and sad and heavier than I wanted. "You didn't raise me," I said. "You endured me. There's a difference." And then she said it. "You were supposed to be a one-night mistake. Instead, you took everything from me. That was it. The old wound, ripped wide open, right there in front of the lawyer, the leftover pie, the faded curtains Grandma had never replaced." I didn't cry. "I wouldn't give her that. I just stood. I didn't take anything from you," I said. "I was given something. There's a difference." She stormed out, heels echoing through the hallway like gunshots. And for a moment, I just stood there, surrounded by everything I had inherited. Not just the house, but the silence, the ache, the weight of generational damage passed like bad jewelry. Later that night, after everyone had gone, I sat in Grandma's rocker with the will in my hands. The air was warm, still smelling faintly of her rosewater lotion. I stared at the porch light flickering under a sky full of stars and thought, she chose me. Not because she had to, not out of pity, but because she saw me for who I was. Who I could be. And maybe that's the thing that hurts people like my mother the most, being chosen when they weren't. They say when a person loses something they think they're entitled to, you find out who they really are. Turns out my mother was a hurricane wrapped in Chanel perfume. The day I officially moved into the house on Sycamore Hill, The sky opened up like it was trying to cleanse something. Not a gentle rain. This was a storm. Thick, angry drops drumming the roof like a warning, but I didn't flinch. I stood there, barefoot on the front steps, letting the rain soak through my shirt, keys in one hand, and Grandma's quilt in the other. It felt like the house was breathing again. I walked through every room slowly, like I was memorizing the walls, touching the doorknobs, running my hand along the old wallpaper, standing in the places where Grandma June used to hum gospel and slice sweet potatoes with a dull knife. This house had soul. The kind you can't buy or build or fake. It smelled like home, and that's when she started showing up. The first time, it was almost laughable. She parked her sleek, borrowed BMW at the end of the gravel driveway and stepped out in a trench coat like she was starring in her own courtroom drama. "I just came to talk," she said, forcing a smile. I didn't open the screen door. I stood behind it, arms crossed, heart thudding. "Talk about what?" "The house, Elena. Come on, let's not make this ugly. I know things were said, but this doesn't have to get messy. It already was messy. You mean when you said, I was supposed to be a one-night mistake?" I asked. "Or when you called this house yours?" Her smile cracked a little. "You don't know what it's like, Elena, to work your whole life and have nothing to show for it." I almost laughed. My whole life had been built on nothing. She gestured to the porch. "Let me come inside. We can talk." I didn't move. "We can talk right here." She sighed, her voice going soft in that way she used to use when she wanted something. "Sell it to me, baby. I'll make it worth your while. You can have the money, go anywhere, do anything." But she didn't. "Get it. This house isn't for sale," I said, steady. "It never was." That was the first time she left angry. Not loud angry, quiet angry, the kind that simmers. But she came back. 3 days later, she brought a realtor. "This is trespassing," I told them from the porch. She just smiled with her teeth. "I'm just showing her the land. You know developers are buying out everything up here." "She's not buying this," I said, my voice like steel. "No one is." My mother leaned in, her voice low enough only I could hear. "You don't have the money to maintain this place. Sooner or later, it'll rot around you, and when it does, don't come crying to me." I didn't flinch. "I won't." She didn't knock after that. She just started showing up uninvited, walking the perimeter, peeking through windows, even trying the doors once or twice when she thought I wasn't home. But I was always home, and the house always knew. It was around. This time I started having dreams. Dreams of Grandma June sitting in her rocker, her lips moving, but no sound coming out. Sometimes she pointed toward the floor. Sometimes she held something I couldn't see. I woke up every time with the same feeling in my chest. Look deeper. So one day, I did. I went down to the basement. A place June never liked. She always said basements were for hiding things, not keeping them. It was musty and dim. The light bulb overhead flickered like it hadn't been touched in years. And in the far corner, behind an old armoire and a stack of mason jars, I found it, a wooden trunk. Dusty. Unlocked. Inside were things I didn't expect. Photographs, letters, receipts. One envelope stood out. My name was on it, in Grandma's writing. I sat on the cold cement floor and opened it. Inside were letters. Dozens of them. From my father. Letters my mother had kept from me. He hadn't left because he didn't care. He had left because she had threatened to ruin him, to lie, to take me away and disappear. She had driven him out, and Grandma had known. She'd kept the truth safe. Hidden, but waiting. Like the house, I sat there for a long time, reading every word, feeling every ache. And when I finally stood up, I wasn't broken. I was awake. That night, I lit one of June's old candles and sat in her chair by the window. The same chair she used to rock me in when I had fevers. I stared out at the fields as the sky turned dark. The house didn't feel like a battlefield anymore. It felt like a promise, one I intended to keep, because now I understood what my mother hated most. It wasn't the house, it was that it loved me back. In the weeks that followed, silence became my sanctuary. No more doorbell ringing. No more footsteps crunching the gravel outside. My mother had vanished from Sycamore Hill like a ghost who finally accepted she wasn't welcome in the light. But I knew better. Storms don't disappear, they regroup. I spent my days restoring the house, not for resale, not for revenge, but because I loved it. Because I was raised by its heartbeat, by the hum of June's voice in the kitchen, by the squeak in the floorboard outside her room. I stripped old wallpaper and found pencil marks on the plaster beneath. My height, scrawled year by year in Grandma's careful hand. I found an old tape recorder in a drawer still working with a message from June. If you're hearing this, baby girl, it means you stayed. Good. This house needs you as much as you need it. That broke me in the best way, but peace never lasts forever. The letter arrived exactly 30 days after I found the trunk in the basement. Certified, lawyer's office. Return address out of state. I sat on the front porch, heart knocking against my ribs as I read, Ms. Monroe, your mother, Evelyn, has filed a legal claim contesting the will of June A. Monroe. She alleges that you influenced her mother under duress during her final months, rendering the will invalid. She was trying to take the house, again. But this time, she brought the law with her. I called Everett, Grandma's lawyer, who hadn't heard a peep from her since the reading. He sighed when I read him the letter. She'll lose, he said. But she'll make it painful, and she did. Depositions, court dates, claims that I manipulated a dying woman, that I was estranged and only came back for the inheritance, that I coerced her with emotional leverage. It was almost funny, watching her try to rewrite my life into something she could explain away, but what she didn't count on was the truth. See, when you grow up under someone like Evelyn Monroe, you get good at keeping receipts, not literal ones, emotional ones, mental ones, the kind no one can fake. I had photographs of every summer I spent with June, videos, voice messages, cards. Neighbors testified how often I visited. Church ladies told the judge how I read to June when her eyesight started to fade, but the final blow wasn't mine, it was June's. The letters in the basement, every one from my father, were dated, signed, and accompanied by receipts he'd mailed with support money. Money my mother claimed he never sent. Turns out he'd sent thousands. Quietly, steadily, for years. She'd taken it and told everyone he'd vanished. When my lawyer presented that in court, Evelyn's face turned to concrete. The judge dismissed the case in under 10 minutes. Outside. The courthouse? She lit a cigarette with shaking hands and looked at me like I was still 8 years old, standing in the corner of that kitchen with Kool-Aid on my shoes. You always had a way of making people feel sorry for you, she muttered. I never needed pity, I said, stepping closer. Just the truth. She exhaled smoke, not looking at me. What do you want, Elena? You want me to say sorry? That I was wrong? That I treated you like garbage? I didn't say anything, because I didn't need her apology. I didn't need her to admit anything. She could keep her version of the past. Had the house. I had the truth. I had myself. The next time I saw her was 6 months later, on a gray November morning. I was raking leaves in the front yard when her car pulled up. Different one this time. Cheaper, older. She got out slowly, like she didn't even recognize the place anymore. She didn't walk up to me, just stood by the mailbox, her eyes sweeping. Over the porch, the fresh paint, the sunflowers I'd planted by the steps. This was supposed to be mine, she said. Quiet now. No venom. Just something hollow. I know, I replied. She looked tired, deflated, like someone who finally realized the game was over. I thought if I had it, I could start over. Do something right for once. I paused, raking in hand, breath misting in the cold air. You could have started with me. She blinked hard. I didn't know how. I nodded once, a small truth between two people with too many lies in their blood. Then I turned and went back to raking. She left without another word. And that was the last time I saw her. Not in court, not in the yard, not at the mailbox. Just gone. Now, the house on Sycamore Hill is mine, truly mine. I turned June's old sewing room into a writing nook. I paint in the mornings, barefoot on the porch. Sometimes I hear June's gospel records skipping softly from the living room, like the house is singing with her. And sometimes when the wind hits just right, I swear I hear my younger self laughing down by the trees. I wasn't supposed to be anything. I was the mistake, the burden, the broken condom. But now I'm the legacy, and that is the most beautiful revenge there is.